Hi. Hello, hello.
Hello,
Back.
hello. I really like your background. It's
Well,
kind
thank
of
you.
very cozy.
Thanks. I try to make it that way to get the vibe or whatever they say, right? To
Okay, yeah.
helps with the music whenever I have my lights and my helps the music flow. Yeah, like
Oh,
is
kind of
that the
very-
Scorpio constellation?
yes.
Nice.
I kind of changed it and liked it, so I was like, okay.
So we were just talking about cannabis usage, and I wanted to record and talk about it because I think it's interesting how um differently things affect people and how there's really no kind of like one size fits all solution for people. And um because I have my medical card, whatever, but like I was saying, I smoke and do everything. Like it doesn't it I feel like it enhances or helps me to concentrate or to focus on what I'm doing. And like we were saying, kind of opens our minds and makes us think a little bit differently about things. And I think it helps you to process. I think sometimes it helps you to kind of zoom out of your situation and be able to reflect a little easier, and look at yourself a little without being so hard on yourself, kind of, I guess, if that's a good way of saying
Oh, yeah. I laughed at myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did
it.
I do? And
Yeah.
it's funny because when do you feel like you detach yourself as well from your
Um,
body a little bit, so you perceive
yeah.
yourself as more?
Yeah. And I think that I've always kind of been able to detach from situations and kind of get that
Yeah.
third person perspective. But I mean, I think that's part of it too, is, because I mean, I've smoked for a long time, so I'm sure it's some way related. Um, but yeah, I definitely think it gives you that ability to kind of detach from the situation sometimes and see it from like a third person perspective, and not have any skin in the game, so to speak, as best you can, and then see what the right thing or the truth is in that situation. But I do think it's interesting how, you know, I've talked to so many different people over the years and how differently it affects different people. And some people, like you were saying that it kind of, you have a hard time like focusing on stuff if you do it, or is that, but you get better clarity with, is that what you're?
Clarity
Yeah.
for sure. Focus, it's like I can't cognitively process.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think that's
And I think,
interesting
sorry,
how,
that's why maybe they say don't drive, I guess, right?
yeah. And that's what I think is interesting is how some people, and I think this is true for all drugs, because I've met functional heroin addicts, that have been heroin addicts
Yeah.
for 20 plus years. And it's like,
I smoked on
that's not
mushrooms.
common,
I mean, I
obviously.
drove on mushrooms.
Yeah, yeah. And so, oh, really?
Yes,
Oh my God, you're
I
what?
know. That was, and I was caught. Anyway,
Really?
that's another story. Back
Oh
up.
yeah, I was just say, but that's insane. But yeah, good.
It's insane.
um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think that it's funny how differently everything kind of affects different people. And like I said, I do it all the time, and I think it enhances what I do and helps me to focus more on whatever. And then you kind of get similar but opposite in some regards too, where I think it makes
So
maybe,
so let's go into details maybe more.
yeah.
So technical things first. How long has it been legalized in where you live, wherever you are?
That's a good question. I want to say about no, maybe a little long, maybe 5 years in
Three
Pennsylvania.
to five. Okay. And
Maybe I don't
so
know. My concept of time lately is so bad, so I don't know. Maybe
it's
longer. I
funny.
don't know. Yeah,
How about space, by the way? Concept of space is good.
it's so far,
Okay.
but time is it's all coming together like it's just one big memory.
Awesome. It's awesome. For me, it's the opposite. That's why I asked. Like, I have no idea about spaces.
Really.
I would say it's so big, and then you come, it's like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Anyway, but I'm little. Maybe that's why.
Well, and it's funny if you look at perception from your size, how you think when you're little, this space looks so big or this place, and then you grow up and you're like, really, that was it? Um,
Right,
but I mean,
right.
I guess it's all kind of related to, how we all have our own perception and perceive things, like we are
Mhm.
talking about with the cannabis and how But I do think it's interesting because, like, I don't know if you guys had, it's probably just an American thing. We had Dare, and it was like the anti-drug. Um,
No, I have no clue.
yeah, and
So
I
when I
forget what
came to
Dare stood
Canada,
for. It
there
was like
was
an
everybody was doing everything, but now it was legalized, right? For the past 17, so 4 years, five.
oh, in Canada it's totally legal.
It's don't, yeah. So,
Oh, really?
there was a big taboo about that. So I don't think anybody was like, ooh,
Yeah.
fighting. But I wanted to ask you, so have you been doing it all also before it was legalized? Like I said, everybody was doing it here.
Yeah.
And they are doing all kinds of drugs, psychedelics now. They are
Yeah.
kind of putting it into edibles, and people are
Yeah.
doing it just like it's legalized, but it's not legalized.
Yeah.
Right. So have you been smoking since like really, really early, and it was not legalized yet, and then it was legalized?
Yeah, I grew up in California, so
Okay.
I think the first time I ever smoked, I was like 17, maybe something like that. And then I joined the military, and every once in a while, but not really, for a few years. And then once I got out of the military, I
Okay.
smoked.
So when you started when you were 17, like I'm gonna take you through your timeline. You don't have to
Yeah,
think about it.
yeah, yeah,
I'll keep a track.
yeah.
So I I hope so. I can. Jesus. Um hold on. So uh, what kind were you trying, and how you
Hmm.
feel differently? So what I mean differently from today.
Oh, yeah, because I think as with anything, you build sort of a tolerance, and it affects you differently as you, kind of consume more or more
Or maybe you
frequently.
have phases. So I
Yeah,
wanted
and
to
I would
think about
definitely
that.
say that too. That's interesting, and I'll go back to that. But so I don't remember. I mean, in California, we didn't. I never saw the like dirt weed. I didn't even know weed had seeds in it before I left California, and then I
Okay, so
left, and
it
I'm
was
like, oh,
just like joints already.
no, I'm saying like our weed was really good, like for a long time. It wasn't any like bad weed. Like it was always really potent and whatever. But I think we just used like glass bowls and bongs and just sort of like,
We called it bongo. The
yeah.
other day I didn't have anything, and I just had somebody gave me like a sample of these crumbs, and I was like, okay, I don't have anything to smoke it through. So I just made bongo. I was like, wow, I feel like 17 too.
Right.
Anyway,
That's funny.
so yeah, what kind of experiences did you have? Let's say it was high school, or I don't know, were you doing sports? Were you
I
learning
was
better? Were
I
you
didn't do I
calmer?
was a good kid. I didn't do anything till after high school. I didn't party till after high school, but I graduated young, and then that summer I graduated when I was 17, and then that summer I was like before I turned 18 is when I really kind of went wild.
So
So
funny, me too. It was the
uh,
same with me. I was
yeah,
a good girl.
yeah.
Jeez.
And
Everybody
then I
was
went
smoking,
totally the
drinking, and I
opposite.
didn't. Yeah.
Went off the deep end.
So where did you try it? Was it like parties, or was it
Um,
more by yourself?
yeah, I mean, just parties. I mean, my friends were into it, and so we were just hanging out at their house, stuff like that.
What did
I
it make
didn't
you do?
just we played video games and whatever, or we're drinking or doing whatever stupid stuff. But for me, it just kind of chilled me out, and I didn't really
Were you
I think
talking
in
a
the
lot more?
beginning. Oh no, definitely the opposite. It definitely pulls me in.
Okay.
Um, at least
Were you
then I
funny
guess.
more?
What are they? What?
Were you funny more when you said
I don't know
something?
if I could get funnier. No, I'm kidding. um, no, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to remember how my personality was 20 years ago. It's hard to think of, but I mean, maybe it was, I know that there was more the like, let's get high and be like the guys on Half Baked, and act like
Oh,
that
well,
sort of
like
thing.
girls, were you more into that?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, but we weren't hanging out with girls all the time. I mean, they were at parties and stuff like that, but I
No,
don't
but it
know.
did make you think of them more.
No, I don't think so. I think I think it
Were
helped
you
me too.
taking in more jokes when you were in the funny, but were you taking more?
Oh yeah, I think it definitely lightens your, mood or whatever, and enhances your sense of humor to
And how
some
about
degree.
food?
Oh yeah, the whole um munchies thing or whatever, of course. Which is interesting because that was, like you said, like that beginning phase when I first started, and sure, all the stereotypes and everything that, most people I'm sure associate with smoking who have never smoked before. Sure, I was probably all of those things at one point. And then when I got out of the military, it was kind of uh it was a lot for pain too. So it was kind of like, it wasn't just to get high anymore, just to have fun. Like it helped with pain and stuff like that too. So it was like kind of dual, you um, but after I got out of the military, I smoked for a long time. Then I got a job working in a school. So I quit for like a year or two before it became legalized. And then I got my card and stuff. And
Were you
when
afraid that maybe you were be caught?
I just wasn't sure what the rules were, and so I didn't know if they drug tested or not, which they turns out
Okay,
they
drug
don't.
test
So
is
I wanted to make sure I was good, and I was working with kids and stuff, so I wasn't sure how.
of
And
course.
then, come to find out, like you can't work with kids unless you get high. So I'm totally joking. But
It's on their level.
yeah, it does help.
I want
Um,
to ask you also, how about coffee and ganja?
what do you
For
mean?
you, of course.
How does it interact?
Yeah, for you.
So
Does it
now,
contradict itself?
does it what?
Does it contradict itself?
No, I think now, especially, like it's just so much of my, it's almost just my routine. Like I don't even think I get high anymore. I just get like normal.
So can you remember any, I'm gonna go to those very regular questions. Craziest, let's say, something that stands out to experience all throughout the years.
Well, I was high or just in general.
Yeah, of course. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah. Man, I don't
You
know.
got married.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's some like dark stories that I don't know if are appropriate.
Okay, so yeah, if you don't have any exciting, funny, or spectacular, so talk about it. That's where I want it. On the opposite, do you have some darker stories?
I mean, if we're talking about cannabis, no, I mean, it's kind of mundane to me at this point. So I don't know that anything stands out. I mean, other drugs that I've been involved with and seen other people, yeah, I've seen people die. I've seen people overdose. Like, so that's not a fun time, but it's all part of the learning experience and understanding. And
So if you don't have anything with ganja, then if you want to share any other experiences that you tried, other substances.
yeah, I mean, I've done mushrooms and MDMA, ecstasy, which are similar, just depends on how they're made. Cocaine. I was on when I was in the military, I hurt my back and they were giving me Oxycontin and all the different opioids, and that got me hooked to that
Yes,
stuff.
those are narcotics.
Yeah, yeah, and they were bad. And that's when I was like that close to trying heroin. And then the guy that I was with, he died in front of me. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. So,
It died in front of you.
yeah, he overdosed and died. And then they had to come give him the old Narcan shot and brought him back. So it was pretty crazy.
Sorry, so he died?
He was dead when they got there, and then they were able to bring him back. Yeah.
What? Can you bring somebody back? I didn't know. Okay, that was confusing. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. I probably made it sound, but yeah,
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's like, oh, I bought this and this and this, and I don't know. Nothing special. Huh? Ooh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it was crazy, to see how it's pretty fast. I mean, like he and shot up and it was like 5 seconds later, he just kind of went back and was stopped breathing, and it was till however long it took for the paramedics to get there. And
Wow, I can't imagine, seriously, how a person doesn't breathe, right? So
yeah, it was pretty crazy.
what happened to you? Were you panicking? Like I don't know what I would do, seriously, because I never had this situation, so I can't really claim. Realistically, what did you do?
I called 911 and told them what was going on.
But like something was happening inside of you, no?
Well, I keep going back to this, and I know that I'm going to come off as a very cold person here, but I don't think that I feel things the same way that, that other people do. Like I see the world very objectively and for what it is in a lot of ways. And so I don't know that I feel the same emotions all the time as other people do. So I know it comes off like cold and stuff, and especially I don't intend to. I'm probably maybe more blunt, but I know how it seems, and my wife always tells me how I need to and how I come off to people. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't really have that kind of, I'm pretty calm under pressure. I don't really have that kind of panicky, like, just I see the world.
Only kids. That's your weakness. That seems to be a weakness.
What is it?
Kids.
Oh, kids. Yeah. Yeah. Kids are a challenge for me, but I've learned a
Yeah.
lot. I mean, especially going from, never wanting to really be around kids to working with kids with autism, and kind of learning those lessons through that, and then coaching a lot of kids. And so I've come around a long way since my original, episode, whatever, or issue, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's yeah, you could call it a shadow.
Yeah, I think it definitely was. I think it was part of my lesson that I had to learn, and um, understanding like when I just did my channeling session the other day, my higher self came in before Ariah did, and they were talking about my contempt for humanity, and now I have to get over it and need to, the phrase "forgive them for they know not what they do" came up again for me. So I'm learning.
Mm, forgive them for what they do.
Forgive them for they know not what they do. So
Okay, so because you are kind of expecting them to kind of know, like, but it's not clear to
well,
you, you don't get it.
there's a bunch of layers to it, but I think for me the biggest thing is understanding that people are not totally in control, even though they might think they are, and they are
Nobody
programmed,
is.
and they don't understand that they're programmed, and so their actions and the things that they say and do, they think they're doing right, but they don't realize that they've been programmed.
Yeah.
So forgive them because they don't even realize what they're doing. So getting mad at somebody who doesn't even realize that they're in the matrix, it doesn't make sense. And so that's what I took out of it, is we sit
Ah,
here and we say, how can somebody believe this? How can somebody think that? This is ridiculous. Like, how can they still think this? How can they still, when all this evidence, all this information, how can they, and it's like, because they're programmed, and we were all there at one point too. So we have to understand that.
oh, I mean, I'm programmed too. That's what I'm getting off myself, the shadows.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's
So
programmed to some degree.
I
It just depends on
understand.
what you're
Yeah.
programmed by.
Yeah. Yeah. It is collective. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Well, I
Right.
mean, are you programmed by the news? Are you programmed by, the social media? Are you programmed by your own values? Like, why do you believe certain things? Ask yourself that. And if because
I'm
you saw it on the
programmed
news, it'd be
by,
time to question things.
yeah,
Not you specifically,
not
but
me.
in
I thought
general.
you were
But
asking me.
no, 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 no. The
Okay.
person watching, or I
But
mean, ask yourself why you believe certain things and see why you do. And if it's because you saw it on the news, maybe reevaluate that situation, or if it's because your sixth grade history teacher told you, maybe reevaluate, who knows? There's a lot of different reasons why we believe things. And when we get down to the root of why, and it's not our own belief system that we came to that conclusion on our own, then maybe it's time to reevaluate that situation.
yes, yes, I think a lot of things are predispositions from past.
Well, people
Um,
don't realize where they have a lot of their ideas and thoughts from, and when we start to break it down, and I'm not saying I'm any different than anyone else. I've had the same things where I grew up with these certain beliefs because I learned it in school, so therefore it must be true or whatever. And then you get to the point where you're like, we need to understand that probably everything we ever learned is wrong, and we need to unlearn and then relearn.
yeah, but you can be okay with that unless it starts giving you problems in life. That's when you have to start changing it. Otherwise, you just accept it. Yeah, I am like that. So, for example, you would have certain beliefs about women as you are men, it's very easy to have that because of the opposites, right? That's why I'm using it as an example.
Mhm.
And yeah, and then 5 minutes after, you don't think about it anymore, right? It doesn't eat your life or something, right? So do you have to change that? Not necessarily. Like, it comes and goes. Yes, you do have judgment and you pass it, let it pass, and then, but it doesn't drive your life. So, there are different beliefs and different beliefs. So maybe they have priorities, but I don't know.
Well, I think the biggest thing is like, if you're gonna die on a hill for something, make sure you know why.
So it die what?
Figuratively speaking, like if
Oh,
you're
so
gonna defend a position, and go all in on it, defending it, make sure you know why. Make sure it's because you truly believe that and not because you've been programmed to believe that. That's more what I'm getting
that's
at.
when you have to realize that, yeah.
Yeah, because if be able to entertain a thought without it becoming your own, that's key in this world, and most people can't do that.
Yeah. Why? So that is my question. I want to go back to where you said that you have to forgive the humanity for not knowing what they don't know.
Mhm.
It was a long process for me to remember
Yeah.
in this state. So I'm proud of myself. But
You're good, you're
anyway,
good.
so I'm coming back to this. It's like kids again. That's our shadow, basically.
Yeah.
So it's not really kids.
Well, I think
It's
it's
just,
kind of the metaphor of the fledgling human. And I mean
Mhm.
that in the spiritual way, I guess, the understanding of who and what we are and all those sort of things. So it's sort of understanding where people are in their process, understanding that we were all caught up in the mess at one point too. We all believed what we believed at certain time before we were able to, escape that type of thinking, whatever. So, just understand where people are, and you can't be mad at them for it, regardless of how much information we know or understand, or, maybe their lives are different. They're busier. They don't have time to, and it's annoying. It's annoying that they dig in on positions that you're like, no, I know that's not right, but it's, instead of getting mad about it, we just kind of have to be more understanding of why they are the way they
yes.
are.
So the best way is to teach them to be conscious. When you talked about emotions, right? So you said people don't have control over themselves. And I said, nobody. Well, so it was too strong. But being human, you just don't, because that's the nature of being human, I think.
Is
Right.
what?
And I'm not talking about the control over things, you're not in control, but over your like emotions, right? Or
Well,
control.
that is, I think, the pursuit, right? We start off as people out of control to become
Yes,
people who are
but
in control.
sorry, what I was saying is that I said nobody has control. And then I was kind of questioning myself. Is it truly true? Nobody, right? Some people may. But then there is just by the state of being human, I think that we don't have control because we have emotions and you'll never get rid of it.
I think that we're working towards that,
Yes, we
where
are. We are.
I think some people are further along than others.
Right.
So I think that sure. And so I so control of emotions. So I guess it would mean more the negative emotions is what we're worried about, because do we want to control loving things? And like if we see something that we love, we're not going to be able to control that we love that, right? I get that emotion is going to take over. But what we do need
It's
to be able to
funny
control.
that you say that because it's to love something so much that you eat them up.
Yeah, well, I guess controlling yourself. So, yeah. Well, and understanding when you're going too far, I guess, and that motherly instinct can sometimes you think you're helping, but you're creating a crutch, sort of thing.
Mhm.
Not you specifically, just in general. Um, but so I think the thing is, more the negative emotions that control us, so anger or greed or, whatever,
Pride.
pride, that's a good one too. Any of those emotions that control us in a negative way, I think are the ones that we are trying to make sure that we're in control all the time. and, go crazy with love, let it take over and do whatever it does. But, the other ones is I think we're trying to be in control of. And I don't necessarily, I don't know how I feel about this next comment that I'm going to make, but I don't know if I necessarily think that there is no place for anger and some of these other emotions that we may think are bad or whatever. I think that sometimes there is a time and a place for those emotions, because I think that, yeah, we're striving for the love and the light and all that good stuff, but we're also living in reality too. Like it might get messy at times. And
All the
um
time. Yes.
so I think that we can't be so blinded by this, love and light thing where we're victims at some point because we're not standing up for ourselves, and in whatever capacity that means. Hopefully it's all nonviolent. I mean, that's my hope, and I think that's everybody's goal. But reality says that sometimes, you know, we're not going to be the ones looking to aggress. But if they are, I'm not going to sit here and say, okay, I'm love and light, you do whatever you want to me. Like, that's not going to happen. So, and I think that, and anger might be a good emotion to tap into in that situation. So I don't know that it's always, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's not destructive always. It's sometimes very productive.
Yeah.
So the other day, I was actually last week, I did this video, and I said that I do still have to conform, and that make me agree. Oh yeah, right. So if I get mad because somebody spills some drink over, that's definitely something that I should not be anymore, because I'm not at that level anymore. But I do have, I don't know, I goodness, I wanted to say I feel entitled to get angry over things that are happening right now, right? I can't just laugh at it like, oh my gosh, poor beings, they are in fear, they think that we have to separate. And yesterday again, it was very interesting how I was walking and two other people didn't cross the same sidewalk, but they went on the road and crossed around,
Why?
when you
Because
have the front yard
mm-hmm.
in front of the house, and then you have the sidewalk, right? So I was walking on the sidewalk, and so they would detour and go all the way on the road and come over,
Why, you didn't have a mask or something?
No, I don't wear mask outside when I'm
Other people do, and they were worried about you.
yes, I saw some that had masks and nobody was around them, like, in a radius of 10 meters or something. And they, yeah. So I understand in a supermarket anyway. I don't want to go back to this one, but just like, does that make me angry? Yes, it does.
But
Can I
see,
do anything
that's, I
about it?
think
No,
so I think being mad at the situation and being mad at the people is too.
it's not the people. It's the, uh, let's say, I understand that there has to be, like they're trying to lock, or prevent from this to spread too much, so they limit people. Okay, I get that, but I know if they oppress you because you're not vaccinated, that is something that, how did we come from, having all kinds of pills and doing all this prevention, right, and having this technology to pandemic, everybody has to vaccinate. What? How do you not do it differently? And vaccination is the last thing that you do.
Money, control.
Well, so does that make you angry? No. Right? That the money still stirs the life.
I was
If
angry
you're
at
a
a
victim
point,
of it,
but I think now I'm at the point where it is what it is. Like, there's a game that's being played and it only gets played as long as people play it. And so I'm at the point where it's like, I can be mad at the situation, but you have to be just as mad at the people still playing the game. And then I'm not going to be mad at everything.
yeah, you cannot
So
walk away, right?
I try to as much as I can. I really,
Yes.
and I know that your situation is definitely, they're more in your, business than they are here where I am. So I would definitely be more angry also, probably, if I was.
So I'm not sure what the kind of measures you have, but you know, you can't walk away, like you can't disappear from this planet and just go live for a few years somewhere else and then come back here, right?
Right.
And I don't have a private jet to take me on some private island that I have, right? But I can
Yeah, and
just
that's really the problem, is that it's sort of encroaching upon us to the point where something is going to have to be done. And that's why I say, I'm not saying that violence isn't going to have to happen. I don't know, but it's either going to have to be everybody stops playing, or there's going to be a revolt from the small numbers. It's, I mean, one of the two options is coming. It's not going to continue on this path there, especially in America. There's too many gun owners. There's too many. It's just, it's
yeah.
not going to
So
happen.
the other day I saw news that a mother was charged because she came to school proclaiming that if anybody is going to make her kids wear masks, she's going to load all her guns and come to school.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm not sure
Well,
where it
and I don't
was.
think that that's the best tact either, but
No, no, no.
I
No, because
understand her frustration.
so those people, going back to emotions, because let's keep it around emotions. This episode of Games of Thrones. Who's gonna get the throne? Anyway, Jesus, JC.ca. Jesus Christ. That was so funny. Anyway, I heard I heard the other day somebody was like, Jesus Christ consciousness, and like, we can create a website, jc.ca.com. I mean, it was funny. So go back to emotions. Some people will be driven by emotions because they finally can release them, right? So when it comes to maybe no violent way to combat this, I don't think so. And also so many other things that would be revealed with it, along with it, right? It's not going to keep you calm or cold enough not to maybe, you know, punch somebody. I'm not going to do that, but so what are you going to do? You know, if you have a bunch of people still living in under control of their emotions.
Who are you talking about? The general population, or what am I going to do?
Generally speaking, but yes, what would you do? What would be your next step? So you have the higher consciousness. You can look at it from like the, you know, bird's eye point of view, and you understand the situation.
As far as the whole pandemic, what's the next? What should we
the
do?
whole situation in the world where, you know, there's still so many things going on and people do believe, you know, it's not even about things that they don't know. Like the other day, you know, there was a woman, I told her, like, do you actually know that there are kids kidnapped, like in these, you know, were in public spaces, in squares, and, you know, taken undergrounds and so on, and just like, no, there's no underground, and so on, right? So that's just like, oh, okay.
Well, and I think that is part of our job. I think that's part of why we do this. I think that's part of why we
I
talk to
ask you,
people.
what would you do?
I mean, I'm doing it. I'm doing it the best I know how right now. And it's just talking to people as much as they're ready to understand, and as much as they're ready to seek out. And, you know, I know that not everybody's ready to hear about, you know, the underground tunnels and all that type of stuff, but maybe they're ready to hear about election fraud, or maybe they're ready to hear about the pandemic, or, you know, whatever, you know, maybe there's other things that they are more receptive to at the moment. And then there is the,
Now, how are you going to convert them, right? So
I'm
if they
not
are
interested
functioning
in
based on
converting people.
emotions,
I am not interested in converting people. My
it's not
interest
the
lies
way
in
I meant it,
presenting the
though. But
information, and that's up to them to do what they will with it. Just like I do, you know, with anybody. I'm not gonna, if you don't believe what I say or care what I don't.
no, it just passes. It
Yeah.
doesn't do anything.
So I am here to present the information. I will answer any questions as best I can as anybody has, and I, you know, to my best knowledge of what the situation is. But, you know, if you want to argue or whatever else, then you're free to go do that with somebody else, because it's not for me.
No, I didn't. I
I'm through
didn't
that
mean
phase.
to argue, but I mean,
Well, I mean, if I'm trying to convince somebody, like, I'm not, that's what I mean.
not
I'm not here
convinced.
to, okay.
By
What do you,
converting, I meant, how would you like raise their consciousness.
Oh, like kind of, and I that's what I mean. I think that we're doing it the best that we can right now, and it's going to be I feel like every day, like even on Facebook, I go on sometimes and I'm like, wow, that's interesting seeing that person post about that. Like I've never seen them, like I have former football players that I coach and stuff where I'm like just posting about 963 hertz and 369 hertz and sun gazing and stuff like that. And I'm like, never would have expected that from you ever, but I guess that's where we are now.
Okay, so it's like opening up
Yeah.
and they are receiving the information. But if you have a child, their brain is not developed. So you cannot just tell them, oh, buddy, to be you, I wouldn't take that knife, because it's gonna pass them and do nothing to them, right?
Right.
So that's where I'm trying to get you, like convert, that mean dogmatically, like sit them and inculcate them again about something new, because it's just anyway.
I think I really think that everybody is going to be kind of an individual basis because everybody knows a little bit differently. Everybody understands things a little bit differently or thinks they do or whatever it is. And everybody, may be anywhere on the scale from knowing the things that we know to, believing everything at face value and, everywhere in between. So it's like, where do you start is where do you think they're going to be most receptive? What is the something that they, so for instance,
I think I got you where I wanted.
okay. So for instance, like if you're talking to somebody who's very scientific, then maybe start talking to them about how energy works and how the different vibrations and the different frequencies, because those things are provable. That's, and that's some of the things that really started to draw me in. I'm very logical, in that sort of sense. So, that was sort of the things with music when I first started learning about different tunings and the frequencies and how they, harmonize, and how our whole universe is made up of different frequencies and everything is atoms vibrating a certain, on and on and on. So that led me down that path. And then eventually you see something else that is a little bit more, it's a little off, but it makes sense with what this is. And then it leads you over here. And then it eventually leads to this, grander awakening, hopefully, if you're curious. And I think that's what it is with everyone, is sort of finding that, crack in the dam, that, maybe that opening that is something that they'd be receptive to, that is interesting to them, or something that makes sense to them, or, because everybody has something different.
How do you make people interested, questioning or curious or wondering?
That's tough because I don't know that a lot of people are.
When inculcation didn't work because it was feeding something to somebody that they were not interested, right, and so on. So what is the other way? What do you think?
Well, yeah, and I think that's the other thing too, is one of our jobs, I feel like, speaking you and I and other people on the same mission who are, sort of trying to help people awaken whatever through this process, I do feel like our, you want to call it attention spans, maybe are a little greater. And I don't mean that like from moment to moment, but like from decade to decade and year to year. And we can say, hey, remember when they just said the exact opposite? Now they're saying this, and being able to point out those contradictions to people and say, hey, doesn't this not make sense? And I think
I'm gonna share exactly, if you allow, this one example. Yeah. And before, I was a hypocrite too, and I know that, which is great because I was able to see myself, but decade ago maybe I wasn't, right? So what happened was that I wasn't supported at work. And then when we went online, there was absolute, isolation. So from the collective of like teachers and professional development hours and so on, right? So I involved myself in this paid, like a Netflix kind of thing, but it's not Netflix. It's like a membership based professional development group, where we would always have like, meetings like this, and we would discuss certain things and so on. And it was all about like, progress in education, basically critical education and like, exactly what I was asking you. If you don't inculcate people, that doesn't work. What are you going to do? Question them, ask them questions. So what do you think if you flip this over, what is going to happen, right? And they're going to be curious. Oh, let me see, I don't know, so let me try, and so on, right? So questioning, giving questions, it's the other method, right? So anyway, this is
Socratic method. It's my favorite.
Sorry?
The Socratic method, my favorite.
That too. But then there are different
making them question
theories as well, and so on. And so I'm in this group, and they are, very highly intelligent people. 3 of them are the leaders. This is their company now, and so on. And deeper in the pandemic, they posted when they started, I guess it was like last year, about maybe March, April, massive vaccinations, right? So they would put at least it was like this here, like in a big gym, or let's say some kind of basketball hall or something, right? And hundreds of people would gather, and then right. And so they posted this picture of these, bunch of people there, and we are proud. So it was on Instagram. I sent them the text message. I'm like, what are you proud of? Right. And then they sent me back, proud of the people, protecting, or, something like that. Right. And then a week ago, they posted another story. So because they're critical education, and standing for it, and they want to stray away from like textbooks, and more like experiential learning and all that, right? So basically much more innovative way. And so they posted this like, don't go with masses, even if you have to walk alone. And I'm like, didn't you just post like a few months ago that you're proud of the mass vaccination? And they're like, Melinda, don't make it about vaccination and so on. I'm like, that's hypocritical. But I just said, okay. And I left. And now I'm not an English teacher anymore. So I left them completely. But I mean, they have great ideas, but then they don't catch themselves. And they are always like, digging into people and like, how to be a high achiever and how to always question your bullshit. And it's good to have accountable buddy and so on, right? And when, I felt like they always would target me because I felt, exactly those weaknesses inside of me, or, like my shadows or something. So I overcame, and I'm so much more stable, right? And now I am able to maybe say something and they don't take it. So I'm like, that's interesting that, how it changes, how it turns. They don't realize that. And if they do, they get defensive, right? But then, I didn't like how they were a little bit like you, what you were saying, that when if somebody was just like not aware or not conscious of something, they would just be like, hey buddy, I guess you're better in the kitchen and stuff like this, and I was like, that's not cool. So they were kind of like that. So I am the opposite, and I actually started digging into this gene keys, and I found that for me it is all about emotions. Actually, like I'm the opposite. Like you would be more logic and going this way, and me kind of like feeling people like, but Joe, don't you think that, how does this person feel when you say this or something like this? Right? So,
my first response would probably be, I don't care.
You don't care, and that's okay too.
A little bit, sort of.
That's okay too, because you are, I think, in that maybe level of consciousness, right, where you have to kind of still break your heart, I would say, for humanity.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to explain this the best way I can for myself, but I don't mean to be cold or anything like that. I think I just have the level of understanding of what Earth is in this incarnation, and that whether people want to accept it or not, that we chose to come here, we chose to learn the lessons that we learn, no matter how fucked up they may seem. That why would anybody want to learn that or go through those experiences? We set them up for ourselves to learn certain things. Earth is a school. We're here as souls to learn evolutionary, things about ourselves and lessons and whatever else. So to sit here and feel those, I don't know, just, I'm not going to get mad at a situation or, feel these certain emotions over things that it's like, that's all part of what we set ourselves up to do. And we just have to have that kind of higher understanding of we're here to do a certain thing. And, I think that right now in this world, and I'm sure there's a lot more than this and it's more complex, but I think that there are the people who came here to stop the ascension, the people who came here to progress the ascension, and the people who just came here to be. And I think that, I'm sure there's everything in between that too, but I know what my side is. I know where I'm at. I know what I'm here to do. And I see other people here, they came here to learn their lessons or whatever else. And so it's hard for me to look at things as so tragic or so, it is what it is to me more than anything, I guess.
Well, and so for example, when you're saying that you're more in that reason, even those people who came here just to be,
Mm.
they are very important.
Absolutely. Everybody's
Right?
important. And
Hmm.
I think that through those three groups that I spoke of, I don't think that I think that there's people who came here to stop it that are probably helping it. And there's probably people that came here to help it that are stopping it. And there's probably people who came here to do nothing and are on either end of that spectrum too. So I think that the veil, as I've
Maybe
channeled,
that's why they came here, to balance this.
well, it's very indifferent because once you go through the veil, you forget everything. So regardless of what your intent was to come here, whatever happens once you get on this side, whatever you remember or however you awaken, you can awaken the opposite of what you came here to do, or remember what you came here to do. It just depends. And I think everything else, in between too, like I said, the veil is very indifferent or indiscriminate. It takes everybody's memory. So
Well, so when you were talking about back again, you would take that person, let's say through music or
mhm.
science. And so what came to me was the number of coaches and teachers that are growing, right? Or popping up. Everybody's got somebody to coach. It's very interesting. Um, yet another one every day.
Mhm.
And I guess if everybody finds their niche, could be arts. So they offer arts therapy,
Mhm.
whatever it is, like, I don't know, handwork, right? So it's so cool. It's so cool.
Well, and something that just came to me saying that when you're talking about those things, when you boil down a lot of those things, what are they really? They're meditations, right? So really it's you getting in touch with yourself and, sitting still and doing something and focusing on something that you enjoy. Then you're meditating and then you're figuring out you know, that's going to open up the world to you once you start to sit still and do something that you enjoy and you aren't being bombarded by the waves from the TV and the energy that that's producing, or sitting on social media on your phone. But when you're sitting there focusing on doing something that you enjoy, and the way that you can tell is if you look at the clock and it's 9 o'clock and then you blink your eyes and it's 14 hours later, then you know that you're doing something that you enjoy and that you're in this meditative state because the time passes at an incredible rate. And I kind of feel like that's why these past 2 years for me have just sort of felt like I went to sleep in 2020 and woke up in 2022, because it's just been an incredible rate of self-discovery and doing a lot of the yoga and the meditation and finding my peace through music and really spending a lot of time. And it's interesting compared to what we've been sort of conditioned to do in this lifetime, and how we're taught to think, and everything's about money, everything's about this, about how I can buy the next best phone or whatever it is, this consumer society. And listen, I have all of the electronics. I'm not saying I don't enjoy those things either, but I think we start to realize what the little things are, the arts and the crafts. And to be fair, a lot of the stuff that I do have as far as electronics are to make music or to do that allow me to do certain things also. So it's kind of the trade-off there as well. Um but I do think that's the main key, is finding that thing that gives you that peace and lets that time pass for you. Well, whatever it is, reading or arts or music, or find something, dancing, singing, whatever it is that gives you that passion where you can let the time flow freely and you're out of touch with the whole rest of the universe and you're just in the moment doing what you love. And I think that's really the key to finding your happiness.
Sometimes I feel like I'm a walking, because listening to you now, I'm also realizing that for this time was so different for everyone, in the sense that, let's say, your consciousness was already different. So all you had to do was refine yourself, let's say, right? Like you say, maybe you didn't do yoga before, but now you started. And it could be with so many different things. And then everything that you liked, you just had more time for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there were people who had to stop, and they went through withdrawals, like, I can't do this and this and this, so I have to do something about it because it drives me crazy. So they maybe learned about themselves that they have to heal. I don't know,
Yeah.
right? Maybe not necessarily it was the healing for you. It was more like, okay, so I have just more time for what I like, and certain adjustments, and maybe adding new things, and just, okay, I move on, right?
Yeah.
And then there are people who are like me, for example. I was doing a lot of other things, and that helped me to get where I am, because I will um benefit from my past, like whatever experiences I got, whether it's in professional or personal life, right? And I was already going through a lot, even I don't know. So today is Tuesday, I think Friday or something, right? No, Friday we had this video, and I think it was yesterday I realized another thing. I was like, no, that actually was happening much sooner. It wasn't this pandemic that, brought this up to my attention. Like, it was there, but I wasn't dealing with it as much, right? And
Mm.
anyway, so for me it was like, I was, like I said, dealing with things for a decade at least, really, because even more, but I was changing it very slowly, and I'm so rigid. I don't really just go and change quickly things.
Yeah.
So for me, it's very slow process, but maybe that thorough. So
Why
once
is that?
I change.
So sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm just curious.
That's okay.
If
I'm
you
just
found
like that.
something
I
that
feel
is,
like that's my essence. I always take very long time.
but if you found something that was like life-changing, effective, or something to that effect, would it take you a long time to, or would you just be like, I just need to
I
do that
really don't
now?
know. You would have to have a specific example.
Like yoga.
Uh, I don't stick to things. I don't, how do you say it? I'm not consistent. So
Have
that's the
you
long
done
time.
yoga? So I want to ask you this because I think there is a huge, huge, huge difference between doing yoga in a class and doing yoga by yourself. And I don't even mean doing yoga by yourself watching a video. I mean doing yoga by yourself. I think there is a huge, huge difference. Have you done that?
No.
Okay. I would encourage everybody watching and yourself to do that. Learn a routine as best you can in your head, or, whatever, watch a video enough times. That's basically what I did. And then kind of put together your own thing and see how much different it is.
I
Because
do.
that's when I get a ton of messages too, is when
You
I'm
get
doing
to know
yoga.
messages. Okay.
Because I'm super focused. I do my, because I think this is one thing that people need to understand too, that doing yoga is much more than just exercising. Like, so what I would say is there's a few things that if you do exercise that you should be trying to accomplish when you exercise. And you should be trying to align your body as best you can, because that helps your energy to flow properly, move in your body, obviously, and expanding your lungs to make sure that you're breathing in entirely to the bottom of your lungs and exhaling entirely from the bottom of your lungs. So, and do that many times over. And I think that those things are just as important as sweating or anything else,
Oh,
because we need to understand that we're an energetic body. And if our energy is flowing properly, then a lot of other things are going to be working properly. Our metabolism is going to work better. Our recovery is going to be better. All of those, the workout that we get is going to be more effective. All of those things. And it's going to help our, mental as well. So that's why I would encourage, try to get to the point where you can do yoga by yourself and see how much different it is. Learn a routine and go through it and really focus on your breath, focus on the movements being precise. Don't, if you're doing, make your arms straight. If, you're in crescent pose, whatever, make sure it's precise, because all the movements are for a reason. And as I'm going through doing it, I'm getting messages like, hey, do that right, because there's a reason why you do it that way. You know what I mean? It's moving your energy in a certain way, or releasing it, or
Okay.
whatever it is. So there's a purpose for the poses. There's a purpose for the way you move. Everything has a reason. The way you breathe when you go into a certain pose, and the way you exhale on a certain, it all has a reason. So learn it. You don't have to know the reasons why, but just do it correctly, and you'll see how much. I mean, like I said, I get a ton of messages when I'm doing yoga. That's one of the places, because I'm just so in touch.
Yes.
I
So,
meditate right after.
well, I do, it's like a mixture of martial arts, dance, yoga, Tai Chi. It's like a 4-minute workout, and I've been doing it every single morning for a few years, And so anyway, just to finish that thought that I had, it's like this pandemic makes you realize that you can't live like this, because that life doesn't make you happy. So you have to do something about your life that finally makes you happy. And then this abundance of whatever comes, into your life. So whatever, for me, it would be mostly financial, because for me, it was always about money that I didn't have to pay, for example, for the things that I loved, right? So
Mhm.
let's say there was dance class and I couldn't do it, right? Or I couldn't continue because it's just like, okay, it's too much on the budget or something, right? And that was something that drove me crazy, right? So when it comes to yoga, I want to ask you about specifically, so what kind of messages do you get? So give us examples, at least 2, 3, if you can. And also, oh, sorry, there was another. Anyway, yeah. So what kind of messages do you get?
Well, like I've gotten a lot of messages just about what to do during yoga, like how to take care of your body and how to, align. Like I think
So
I've
it's not
mentioned it,
like
but
some kind of, I don't know, spiritual messages, but it's more about the the kind of messages that you can apply to your life.
yeah, I mean, I get messages all the time. Like some of them are for videos and some of them are just for me personally, so I'm always getting messages from Ariah or whatever. Sometimes it's Jesus.
When you mean
But
all the time, like all the time, throughout the day, anyway, I
it's,
mean,
yeah, very random. Like, if I'm doing music, obviously Ariah is very involved in music with me. So,
yeah, he likes.
uh, yeah, he'll play guitar in my head and stuff like that. It's hilarious. Um, but yeah, they're very much involved with the musical process. I'll get a ton of ideas and, hey, try this, or I'll hear a part in my head or whatever it is. And so they're very involved in that. But yeah, I mean, I just get, like the message about, aligning the body and stuff, and going through and them kind of showing me how to manipulate, my joints and stuff like that to, relieve them and get them aligned and that sort of thing. Basically doing self chiropractic care. And I can pretty much go from my neck all the way down to my toes and pop everything in between. Now they showed me how to do that. So I start with that. Well, I start with the breathing so that it kind of opens my lungs and do all that. I posted the video of my yoga before, but I do a couple different
So it was so
variations.
cute.
Thanks. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's a lot of, I mean, I learned some of it from, I told you before, that P90X guy or whatever. I watched a lot of his videos, took a lot from that, and then just sort of kind of created my own. It's good for me. I don't know if it's good for anybody else, but helps get my body aligned,
I
helps my energy
think
flow,
so.
helps my breath, and all that stuff. And but yeah, I think those are the most important things when you exercise is, even so doing the videos and stuff, I feel like you're paying attention to that. You're not in here, where you're focused on how's my breathing feeling, how is this, where you're super focused on what you're doing and your motion and that sort of thing, instead of that outside stimulus. So I think there is a degree of difference with that. At least for me, I've noticed that when I can focus and just go through the routine on my own in my head and stay focused on my breathing, and I like to look outside when I do yoga, so I just kind of look at the trees or whatever else and just focus on trying to get in, touch with nature, looking at the sun or whatever I do. um and yeah, I think it's a different level of meditation when you have that focus on yourself and you're not having to look for that external stimuli or,
I think that's what we talked about before, because we said if you live the mindful way, that's the meditation, right? Or the arts or
yeah,
anything that you love, but you
yeah.
have to do it slower. That's where we have to change the thinking of the world. Not just like, that was so interesting. Have you seen Brene Brown? I mean, do you know Brene Brown?
Mm-mm.
So she's a researcher in the field of emotions, and she would research specifically vulnerability and shame, that everything stems from it. And even now during the pandemic, so it's not like 5 years ago, and in 5 years a lot of things can change in the society. She had this presentation, and like in 2020, and she's like, she's giving talks in a lot of companies. So for example, she would be giving talks in Silicon Valley companies and so on, and they would call her and say, okay, so what do you want me to talk about? And they would say anything but vulnerability and shame, and she's like, okay, then I'm not your person, because everything. So they would be like, we're a company and we're struggling with creativity and innovation, and we would like you to come and give us a talk. And she's like, okay, what? Blah. And they said anything but vulnerability and shame. And she's like, so you have problem with creativity, you have problem with innovation, and you don't want me to talk about shame and vulnerability. How can you not be vulnerable? You have to be vulnerable before being creating and together and innovate. So how do you go from rigid state of like, no, I'm not going to make changes if
But she
you
thinks
don't
that people are not creative because they are feeling shame or their
know
inability.
everything else? Yeah.
Mm.
There's like so much of it. And that's what I'm studying right now. It's amazing to be on. That's where we have to understand ourselves, right? And that's maybe something that could help a person like you a lot, because you can understand how the emotions basically work, because they're a lot of times just chemical processes, basically, right?
What is our perception other than our
Yeah,
reaction in our
and
brain?
so when you connect everything, right? So it's the emotions, and if you slow down, you're not rushed, you are not stressed, then you elevate your state of your mind being more receptive. So then you can either receive ideas, or let's say focus more on your breath. Focusing more on your breath takes
Right.
you to being productive in much more, either sensible, but also um just more present, and that creates something that makes more sense, and you're going to consider, let's say, the best interests of other people and so on, right? And
Yeah.
so all of these cycles of like greediness, and with this marketing and so on, right? It's like, as it was made, the other day I was listening, and the example was how we have in our, like, a snapshot in our head, a pretty woman leaning on a luxury car, right? So for a man, this is like a dream, right? So when they make these commercials, they put beautiful women there, right? And a luxury car. So that's so stupid, right? Because it doesn't mean anything. We gave it a meaning, and it's funny, but it can make you angry. Like a poor guy who doesn't, look good, and he can't have this girl. That's what he thinks, right? He doesn't have that money. He's gonna live his entire life in this anger, and I don't know, some kind of like, uh, what, like unmet needs.
I sort of agree, and I also think that sometimes advertising is a little bit more simple than that, and that let's just be honest for a second here. You would rather look at somebody attractive on a car than somebody unattractive on a car, just for the simple fact that your eyes are going to stay fixated on the attractive person with the car behind it longer than if somebody unattractive was standing there with the car behind it. So I think there's something to be said in that regard as well. But yeah, I definitely get
Why
where
do we
there's that
have to have these
subliminal.
commercials?
Hmm?
Why do we have to have these commercials?
I don't think we have to, but like I said, I think when we break people down to their simplest form, you know, we are what we are, right? We have our own instincts and emotions, especially the lesser
Yes.
forms.
But again, I'm going to question you. So if there is like a, I don't know, beautiful person, and you compare yourself, that's also the problem, right? The comparison.
Well, whose
That's what
fault is
we don't
that
want
though?
to have.
Well, whose fault is that?
Come on.
If you compare yourself to somebody else, that's your fault.
It's not my fault.
Sure it is. If you say I'm not as,
This is the collective wound that we have, and we have to
well,
heal.
maybe we should heal it in that direction then, saying we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to others and just be able to appreciate others for what they are instead of saying I should be
Well,
this or that.
exactly. Because how do
But
you
going,
consider,
well, go ahead, finish. I want to go
do
back
you
to that.
consider yourself a healthy, beautiful, I don't know, smart person?
Do I consider myself that?
Yeah.
I would consider myself healthy.
But- right, and I don't know, it's just a kind of well, at some point ridiculous, at some point funny, and I would consider it also cute when I'm looking at it from the really high perspective, that people would say, yeah, it's your fault that you don't feel pretty enough. Well, who says that I am or you are pretty? Right?
Nobody.
So it's your fault that you're comparing. You just thought of us as more pretty, but there has to be somebody, maybe majority of people told you that you are, I don't know, smart or beautiful or strong or something. And then you go yourself believing in that. If nobody would ever say these words to you, what would you think of yourself? You wouldn't even have the knowledge of these concepts.
Yeah. So maybe we need to stop looking for external validation on things.
But that's what I'm saying. It's the collective one that we have to heal, right?
Well,
So
but going back to the advertising, I think it's a little bit more basic than that. We are basic humans in a lot of ways, right? And our most basic urge and need is to reproduce. So if you put something attractive in front of somebody who is going to naturally draw their attention because
I
of that
see.
basic urge and need, it naturally fascinates them further than if you just had the car there. So I think that that's the reason why. I think it's more to prey on our more basic instincts more than it is to make us think that we're going to get that girl whenever we buy that car. I think it's
Absolutely,
maybe some
absolutely.
people get that impression. I've never had that thought that if I eat that Carl's Jr. hamburger, that girl is gonna or whatever that they try to. I've never had that thought in my life, but I do tend to believe that it's more enjoyable to look at an attractive person eat a hamburger than a big fat disgusting person eat a hamburger. So and I
Yes,
think that that
that's
is just a general, and everybody has their own perception of beauty, but I think we can all agree that there are certain things that are more widely accepted as beautiful and things that are less widely accepted as beautiful. And that is not based on any, I'm sure there is some tiny degree of programming to that, but I think that it is much more of
I
our
mean, like
basic
culture.
human instinct. Yeah, I think that's a very small part of it because I think that more of it is there are certain things that are attractive to individual people. And that's what, because everybody has their own individual, what they're attracted to, hair color, eyes, whatever it is, those sort of things, body shape, all those.
Oops.
There's an individual, sure, there's an
Ass.
individual,
Sorry.
right? So everybody has their individual, preferences in that sort of regard. But I think that if you were to poll every single man on the entire face of the planet, there would be a general body shape, there would be a general eye shape, face shape that is
Yeah.
considered, consensus beautiful. And then, yeah, of course, everybody can have their own individual, spectrum or whatever. But I think that there would be a, you would have a pretty, and
Yeah,
I think we all
absolutely.
know what the idea is. I mean, I think they've made it pretty clear. It's not, and because the reason why I say this too is because we can say society programs us or blah 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 blah, but there is no man that I have ever met in my entire life that thinks that a skin and bone anorexic woman looks good. So I don't know where that perception came from and where these models and some of these other, like, I don't think that there's anybody who thinks that looks good or healthy or anything like that. So I don't know that. I think sometimes they try to force a perception on us, and sure, maybe it sticks with some people, but I think the general population knows what they think is attractive is based on their own perception,
I
not what somebody
think
else tells them.
um average, I think I said that in some video, average is considered the best. And in any aspect of a human being, which is IQ, EQ, and so on.
Hmm.
And then everything else is exceptional on the spectrum of like, if it's better, then it's, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's good just because it's more of it. And if it's less, so it's like, how do you call it? If you have a person that is actually so much into skinniness in themselves and in the others, then it would be like a psychotic trait, which is more maybe like a wound.
Yeah. I always think of that. Do you ever see those? It's like a chart that you make and it's like you in the middle, and then it's like, I'm good at this and this, and then, then it draws and you connect the dots and it's like, okay, I really need to work on this area. This one's a little too out of control. And I think that should be, and I think, and this is a general statement, but it seems when there are people who are obsessed with the aesthetics, the mental capacity may be lacking, or the depth of character may be lacking.
You think so?
Or I think it can be. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying I think that people, and I'm talking about the extremes, obviously, not some. I think it's totally fine for people to care,
You
but I'm
mean
saying when you're
extremes?
only.
Because I do wear makeup. Like, for example, today I have a lot more makeup.
No.
And it just
I'm saying when
happened.
all you care about is aesthetic, when everything is, I have to be this, I have to look a certain way, I have to have this, Botox and all these different.
But that's also, the makeup is also a mask. It's also a mask, right?
Yeah.
But again, it can be perceived. For me, it's more like I felt for it. I had this mood, and it's kind of an art.
But you're obviously not consumed by your aesthetics to the point where you are.
No, because like 5 days
developing
in a row,
yourself in
I
other
can go
ways.
without makeup, right?
Well, that's my point. When people are the people who can't look away from a mirror for 5 seconds to read a book, like that's what I'm talking about.
And
like,
that's the kind of like a
I'm not here to
morbid
judge them either.
wound where you are really hurt, right? So your ego is like so insecure that is so proud.
Yeah. And I
Right.
think
And
that
that's
people
the
get caught
extreme.
up. It's definitely that ego taking your identity is beautiful, right? And or your identity is this, or your identity.
And so
Everybody has that identity that they try to hold on to. And I think
oh
not
yeah.
having that identity.
So the other day I was looking at, it's kind of funny how I think of someone who said these things and then the post comes up and it's kind of like a synchronicity, because I have a question about it and I'm like, I don't know how to look at it. I don't know what the truth is, right? And we don't really have the truth because the higher truth is not really on planet Earth yet. But anyway, it could be my truth, right? And so where do I stabilize myself? And so saying like, I am smart and I am enough, I am this, and it's all about I'm insecure, so I'm telling myself all these affirmations, right? If you have these affirmations and you are being it, you don't have to tell yourself all these things, right? So I was like, yeah, okay, so if this person is kind of like annoying me, oh, because you know what, I am smart, so I can explain this to you, and I'm like, I don't mind if you affirm yourself in this way, and it's like, yeah, you talk positively to yourself so you don't have a negative self-talk or something, right? Because that's all in the air. You can just like chop it, right? It's so dense with all these affirmations and all of these like positive talk and positive images and all that, right? It's like too much of it, Anyway, so I was like, should I just like what to think of this, if people are like that? And then it came, it's just like, they're just insecure. So they need these affirmations. And I'm like, okay. And then, so you were talking again, maybe more about the morbid, I would say, trait of people when they are making their lips big like this and having the implants all over their body and stuff like that. That's something that you meant as
I just think that their pursuits are and everybody's different, there's the unique individual, of course. I just generally, from my observation, it doesn't seem like their pursuit is anywhere near the their pursuit is bettering the human vehicle than bettering the soul. I'll put it that way. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what some people came here to do. So I no judgment. I'm just saying, typically speaking, they're probably going to be more focused on aesthetics than any kind of conversation like this or anything like that. So,
well, did you have lots of conversations, but nothing that you would be interested
in? Exactly. I don't care what Kim Kardashian's wearing or anything like that. So the fact that I know her name is more than I wish I did.
We all know it's just because she's everywhere.
Yeah.
That's why.
And the
Yeah.
public consciousness for sure. But yeah, I don't know. And like I said, I'm not here to judge anybody. And I think that, obviously taking care of yourself is a big part of this whole thing too. I don't think that you should, neglect your human body in the pursuit of your, soul. I think it's all a balancing act as well, is more what I'm getting at. But that's why I said that chart, I think they come a little bit more in the aesthetics, and then the soul part is a little bit rounded off down here somewhere, instead of it being, part of the whole collective. And I think that's what we should all strive to be, is well-rounded in things. And I think that's one thing that a friend of mine, we get together on Saturdays and discuss how we're going to change the world. And we sort of identified that, oh man, what was I just going to say? I totally lost my train of thought now.
Sorry, I distracted you.
That's okay. What was I saying? Oh man,
You said
I totally forgot where I was going.
you were saying how you are meeting with your friend every Saturday to change the world.
Yeah, I had a somewhere I was going. I don't know, but I guess the overall theme from that is that, we are moving towards, you talked about how we change it and how that sort of thing. And I think our
In
goal
what
is
way?
in all ways,
Intellectual?
in all ways, school, the whole society, the way everything is
So
going.
more like intellectual, conscious way. Mhm.
Yeah. And I think, I think I've talked to you about the buildings that, I've been told I need to build in the future and that sort of thing. But I think the progression to get there is, instead of fighting the system and trying to say, hey, we're down here and we're angry about it, we don't want to be part of this anymore and all that, like, that's fine. So let's go create our own the way we want it. Instead of fighting it, we just step away and we go create things the way we want to. We create the schools the way we want them. We create this new earth that everybody keeps talking about. It's not just going to appear out of nowhere. It takes action. And I think that we're getting to that point where that's becoming the understanding, is that that's what we're here to do. If we're here, if you're part of that, that one side that I talked about in the, if your purpose is here to raise the vibration and, help people through this ascension process, then I think it's time to start figuring out how and putting it into action, and
So that's very cool that you're saying it. Do you mind? I'm gonna actually, I would like to share something with you.
Sure.
If I can share the screen. So just quickly,
yeah.
That's my problem, because I don't feel like, Jesus, which one is it going to be? This one. So I don't feel like I can progress, in this. And what I want to share with you, where is it? Just a second. Share screen. This one. So this is the genius profile. And this is
exactly
about,
the type of map I was talking about.
yes. And so let me make it a little bit bigger. Here, it talks about my genius force field, and like my gene keys, the strength and weaknesses, whatever. And so it's not like that. Obviously, we should stray away from this language as well. So, for example, cooperation profile. What I wanted to tell you was that, well, let me take this spotlight. So autonomous and independent, I am so low on that. Where are you? Yeah, right? I can't. I'm not going to do anything in this world if I am to put to work independently. But I am the best in partnership, one-on-one, right? And then in supportive communities, in networks and organizations, I am pretty flexible. But yes, you see, so this is my problem, why I suffer so much. And that's all I wanted to share, that I feel like I'm under this isolation, that I can't like connect with other people to finally start exactly what you're talking about, right? Because I do feel capable. I do have ideas. I know, like I said, from previous life, the experiences, whether I was as a teacher or I was a mother and so on. And I'm learning so many new things now, and I'm going to do this dance and voice alchemy, which is also very important in a lot of other ways, to I don't know, how is it possible that we can't get together? Because I'm sure there are so many people who are waiting for that. I can't find my tribe here. I can't find,
Yeah.
everybody's into something else, or they're just somehow not aligned, with, so let's say my idea. Let's work together, and you can bring them like a massage. See, she's a massage therapist or something, right? And I can bring in the dance, you can bring in the, I don't know what it would be, the healing, right? And you can cater to whoever, I don't know. And why we can't, it's not difficult to find a place and just like make this cool, let's say. I'm just saying, right? So
Well, I think that this is the beginning phases. I think this is where it starts, similar to, and I'm not comparing myself to Jesus, just similar to his mission where he started talking, and then people listened, and then more people listened, and then more people followed, and then more people listened. And I think that's how it starts, is it starts organically, just like this. Just like I think that's what my point was, going back to my friend and I meeting on the weekends. We meet at the Barnes and Nobles and have coffee and discuss how we're going to fix the world's
aw.
problems. But so doing that this past Saturday, we were sitting there talking, and I think we were talking about the pandemic or something to that effect. But anyways, I saw this guy across the way, and he kept looking at me, and he was looking around, and I'm like, oh man, this guy's going to say something to us. He probably has something, whatever. Anyway, turns out I was like, hey, how you doing? And he was like, oh, do you mind if I come join you guys? You sound really interesting. And we had an awesome conversation for like 4 hours with this guy. He ended up being a professor of virology at Carnegie Mellon University right
Are
over
you
here.
kidding me?
No,
Wow.
and he had all kinds of enlightening things to say. His brother is he works for the HHA, the Human Health or something. I don't know. He gives like conferences, he was saying, all over. And so it was very interesting to hear his perspective. But whole point of all that being that it started with just him and I having a conversation, and now it's another guy, and he's going to start meeting us, and then maybe somebody else here overhears this and wants to come talk, or maybe somebody hears our podcast and says, hey, I want to be part of this too. Or I think that that's how it starts. And I think that once we hit sort of the critical mass where enough people are on board and want to be part of the change and want to do it,
Down to
then you
each
can put
other.
into practice the physical locations and bringing people together and that sort of thing. But I think that we're in the infantile stage right now of kind of figuring it out. We have to figure it out too for ourselves, and I
No,
think
but
that
I mean, okay, we have to figure it out, but even, I don't know, anytime, at any point, you can just start a business, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. You can get the, what is it? Not the label, but I don't know quickly what it's called. And my problem is you have people maybe coming together, right? I don't
Mhm.
have that. So I know it's my fault. I have to get out, find them, but I don't know. That's the thing. That's kind of like how, and I guess they have to be drawn to you. I don't know.
My encounters have been, I mean, the guy that I met that I've been doing this with, I met when I was part of the militia. So we weren't meeting of, and he's super into philosophy and that sort of thing. So it's not like we were intending to go meet in this sort of, with this wavelength. And so I think it's just kind of paying attention to who you meet along the way. And, it's not always going to be exactly what we envision or, we hope or whatever else. And, maybe there isn't anybody around you right now, but maybe they see this video in the future, or maybe you meet them at a, and spark their interest somewhere else, or, so I think that it's kind of, and also remembering that if we say that there's nobody around to do it, then, we create our reality. So careful what you say.
Right. Yes. Yes. Well, yeah, I was more like, I can be the action taker. And I feel like a lot of people are more passive, just like yourself. Oh, we have to just start it. I don't need to talk about it. Just do it. But that's exactly what is so funny, because that's my life path.
Well, but
I,
think of it this way: if you opened a school right now, who would come?
mm, so I think they would. And
Who?
I was going to get there.
Oh, okay.
The most sensitive area are always kids. So I think more and more parents are going to realize, especially now, that their kids are not they're not learning.
Right, but that's my point is you're talking about right now. If we started a school tomorrow, who would come? Parents aren't at that. They're close. They're getting there. They're getting to that point
There
where they're
probably
ready
are
for that
many though,
next, where they're ready to throw their hands up and
maybe
start fresh.
more than you think.
But I don't think we're there yet. I think there's a lot of we're in the phase, like everybody's ruffling their feathers, but we're not in the action phase yet. Like we're close, but that's what I mean. That's why I think this is all happening, unfolding the way it's supposed to. We're talking, we're having people listen, and then we're drawing in the crowd that in the future, when these buildings do go into effect, now you have people to actually attend them. If we were to have already started this or did it right now, there isn't going to be that. There isn't the need for it yet. I mean, there is a need. It's just not as people don't understand it yet. They don't understand that they need to change
I
it.
know.
Not everybody's on board yet, but we're
So
close.
one thing that I would say when we talked about the hypnosis of I sent you that video too, remember? And the messages are everywhere. This is the same thing. When I also realized that I'm getting concepts or things much faster because I am so much more attuned with the terminology. And so when you put these two words together, like, I don't know, some kind of this attachment style, right? And what the fuck is that? Sorry for the language. What is it, right? And now, because it's more and more people talk about relationships. Oh, so it pertains to the relationship of like relational psychology, and oh, it's about relationships. Oh, that means that I'm too codependent. Oh, what is codependent, right? So all of these, that's the language, yes. And more it's like seen and being heard by people, and lots of books, right? The shelves are just so full of it. And maybe that would be interesting to observe when you go to Barnes and Nobles, where people go, what kind of books are they grabbing? I don't know. It would be just my observation, just to I can go. We have the same kind of style of bookstore, and just see what they're actually into. And you can also go to like #1 bestseller and something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then you can see, oh, so this is where the consciousness is going, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
before
that's
it
what I
was
do with
all about
Facebook.
business.
Interestingly enough, that's what I was talking about this morning when I see people who I'm like, man, I never would have expected you to post something
Right.
in this
Yes.
realm. And
Okay.
it's kind of like that same thing of what are people reading? You can tell just where the consciousness has been kind of slowly more and more in my timeline. Like, there was the influx of people that I've met through channeling and that sort of thing, where it's obviously like you would expect those sort of things in your timeline. But then, like I said, when I start to see players that I used to coach or things like that, and it's like, man, so maybe the consciousness, it must be changing, because this is people I never would have expected to be talking like this or thinking these things. So that's very encouraging. And it's funny that you mentioned that, though, because I did have a thought the other day when I was there, and it's sort of goes back to what we were talking about with the beauty, and how that where we think that people have kind of told us that this is what beautiful is, that's why we think a certain way or whatever, and maybe it is to that effect for some people. But it also made me think of, I was walking past the one going to the restroom, and I saw a comedy section, and I just the thought occurred to me of, it's kind of funny how this little section kind of creates what comedy is in someone's reality. And they get to determine that based on what books they put in this section, and kind of shape what comedy is in a way. Like, and I thought that was just kind of an interesting, concept in society where, funny's funny. You're going to laugh because something made you laugh, not because somebody told you it's funny, right? Like it's a natural reaction. So that's why I think it's interesting with this, like, social justice. I don't know if you've ever heard some of these social justice like comedians that are just awful. There's nothing funny about them at all. They just try to be up there and like soapbox the whole time with their social justice, issues. And it's like, this isn't funny. This you're just soapboxing. Like, there's nothing funny about this. And so I think that's what's interesting, is that you can try to shape and mold as much as you want, but what's funny is funny. You're going to laugh if it's funny. You're not going to laugh if it's not funny. If someone's beautiful, they're beautiful, regardless of what somebody tried to shove down your throat as what an image of beauty. You're going to be attracted to what you are attracted to. You're going to laugh at what you want to laugh at.
There's
But
the higher truth. Yeah.
yeah, but I think it's funny how they do try to shape that, in their, they, whoever they is, but I did think that was kind of an interesting observation.
So also when you mentioned, let's say this doll made Kim Kardashian, right? That's maybe how consciousness wants to know itself as well. Expand in that sense, like, okay, that's an experiment. Let me do it, right? I don't know, whatever comes out of it. I don't know, because I thank God don't have this kind of, idea.
Oh, well, that's the thing too, is people got to understand that, like you just said, and I said there's those three classes that I believe, the big, the stoppers, the goers, and the in-betweeners. But the those in-betweeners that just came here to make themselves more beautiful, or like learn those, there's all kinds of lessons to be learned from those incarnations as well. Not all of us are here to have that deeper meaning, I don't think, or have that, some of us are just here to stare at the sky and admire things, or what, so I think there is that more.
Do you know the big psychologist Marisa Peer?
Mm-mm.
So it's funny. I mentioned these quite big names to you and you don't know that. It's okay. So
I'm in my own world over here.
I think you're still in, basically.
Yeah.
You're not that far, but it's just a person that is like a, celebrity psychologist. And she's also like, for other people, obviously, but she was talking about how all of these years living in, or among, I'm not sure if she is in Hollywood, but definitely has a lot to do with all of that Hollywood. And she's like, observing their relationships and what's happening there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she was saying that basically Kim Kardashian is searching for perfectionism, right? This is maybe the consciousness trying to understand there is impossibility in perfection, right? Because you never can achieve it. So if that's the way she needs to get it, and this is the way I prefer differently to get, like, okay, there's no way to be perfect, right? Because there's nothing like that. And so yeah, somebody's doing it, let's say through, coming out. I wouldn't do that, on these stages and trying to be funny when they're not funny, because somebody told them, just to be brave, or something like that, because there's no perfect. So even if they don't laugh at you, right, but it doesn't have to be great and cool and all that, right? So just go and do it. And maybe that's where they need to expand and be courageous enough, even though they're rejected like crazy, right, and so on. And that's also cool. So whatever, it's going to serve. And so when you were talking about you just cannot take away from, let's say, what is considered let's say beautiful. So there's this higher truth in everything, right? And sorry, there was something I came across the other day too, which was so funny. That's where we are heading, basically, right? Where we are failing so much just to look at ourselves, that you can't be the beauty. Beauty is, love is, joy is, right? You're just expression of it, and the expression of it, you are the way you are, and all of it is okay, as long as it's true joy. And everything else is just manipulation. Everything else is just let's say trying to be, and it's fake, and that's where it's not authentic, right, and so on.
Well, and I think that's kind of interesting too, is sort of that difference between, there's that kind of superficial attraction too, where people, where from like a distance somebody, or like in I don't know if you've ever been to a strip club or not, but like the lighting that they use there,
Okay.
people are two totally different people when those lights are on and when they're off. Like there's, I don't know what they do, but they go from looking a certain way to these tragic monsters when the lights come on. And it's like, I don't know what that light does that transforms them like that. And I mean that in a funny way, not a mean way.
I know.
But anyways, so I think that there's also like, you see that beautiful person from a distance and they're like, wow, they're perfect. And then you get closer and closer and there's, they're wearing tons of makeup and then their personality's terrible. And then all these other things that make them super unattractive. even though in the beginning from a distance, you're like, wow, they're a very attractive person. But then, so I think that it's interesting how there's more to attraction and those sort of things in beauty than just the superficial, distance. I think there is that too, where you can admire somebody and say, wow, that's very beautiful from a distance. And then you get closer and you talk to them and you're like, oh my God, this is the worst person I've ever met, so, and you're totally, not attracted to them at all anymore. So I think those things, or even somebody who may be less attractive, but as you talk to them and get to know them, and then they become more and more attractive
Yes,
because,
that's another
or
way.
like in the workplace where people have maybe not been attracted to somebody as you get to know them more and interact and that sort of thing. So I think that there's all those different varying levels of attraction and those sort of things too. So
For sure.
to say that society programs that is, I mean, maybe for some people to some degree, but I think there's so much more to it than society programming us on what we think is attractive.
That's another thing that's why I do believe that the schools would make sense, even if it's open from tomorrow. Because, for example, if I have an unmet need, which could be, God forbid, but let's say my car breaks and I'm going to go to this, car place, garage, and this guy is going to be fixing, I would be attracted to his skill and I would be attracted to him, right? So I would have this distorted understanding of, oh, I'm attracted to you, but actually I'm attracted to the skill that he has that I don't possess, right?
Yeah.
So things like this, that's what we need to teach people. And so what is actually the attraction? You said that, I was laughing because do you know what is Sephora? Is a big makeup store.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't know Marisa Peer, but you know Sephora.
Well, I was going to say only because my sister did like makeup for a ton of years and she would always make us go there whenever she would come visit and stuff. So she would get
Aw.
stuff. So yeah, that's why I was kind of laughing. Like, yeah,
It's
I can. I don't know for myself.
a
No.
life experience. Anyway, so we went, they had me and my friend, we went there. They had like a 15-minute or 45-minute tutorial and it's free. And so I was like, okay, let's try, because I love makeup, but a lot of things I cannot do by myself. So here at home, sometimes I try, I don't know if you can see like this, Egyptian line, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know how to do that. And there are so many videos and they do it so perfectly. I'm like, okay, let me try today, And so I'm going to meet Joe, Just kidding. But yesterday I didn't have such a good morning. Today I do. Tomorrow, maybe something else happens. So I'm kind of going with the flow. I don't always, do that, but there is someone who is consistent, which is amazing. They always have the same face, no matter what mood they are in, how healthy or not healthy. That's incredible, And then I was always told, oh no, we know exactly what mood you are in by the way you are dressed and whether you have makeup or not, or whatever the hair you have and so on. We exactly know, right? So,
Yeah.
and I don't mind being authentic like this,
Yeah.
So if that, takes people like, oh, okay, she's probably not in a good mood, I'm not going to talk to her or something, I'm fine with that. I don't know. But we went to Sephora with my friend and they gave us this perfect makeup, like not a spot, the layer of makeup was like this thick and not a spot on me was like, how do you say it, like with floss, and so much of this eyeshadow and everything, right? And then from the far, I looked like this, how do you call this, wax figurine, just impeccable face, It's like you take a piece of paper and you draw or you paint a face. And I just smash it on myself or something, right? And then so I used to use Subway sometimes, and this guy came, he was homeless person, just so deteriorated, he smelled, he was so funny dress, it was just like with tears all over his pants and shirts and everything. He came closer to ask me for money. And he got scared, so he came closer. It's like, wow. Because it was so fake. There was so much makeup, like literally my nose got lost or something, And I'm like, if this guy probably never seen makeup or doesn't know what it is, maybe, and he got scared. What about other people? It's just so unnatural. And I'm like, never again. But it was fun from the experience. And I know exactly, now that I would never want to do this,
Yeah. I think
Anyway,
makeup's a very fine, and I know this is just my personal opinion, but I think that if you look like a different person with makeup on and off, that's sort of scary. Because I mean, not no, let me.
I
There are
know
some
what you
people
mean.
who are two totally different people with makeup on and off, and I think that you should resemble the same person, you know, and that's just my own personal. There's some people who, they
Agree.
take their makeup off, and you're like, I didn't even like. That's a totally different face. Like you're a totally different person. That's like false advertising. And then there's other people where it's like, okay, you're the same with it on and off. So, and whatever you want to do, I'm not judging anybody. I don't care what you want to wear or whatever you want to do. To me, I don't like that look of if I can see your makeup on, like it just is like, you look like you're trying too hard. You don't need to do all that. And that's where I think it's that kind of, well, one, I think that is sort of societal conditioning with makeup and those sort of things where
Mhm.
women put that pressure on themselves to look a certain way and think that men are putting that pressure on them when we really don't care. And it's more you guys thinking that you care or thinking that we think that way or something, I believe. Or maybe other people do think that way. I don't know. I don't think that way. I prefer natural beauty myself, but I think we've gotten to this like fake society where everything like that like bumped up lip thing or whatever, and the like God, that stuff like turns my stomach. Like you look like a nightmare.
That is, but that's the morbidity, right? That's the
Yeah,
sickness behind it.
yeah,
That's something that those people just can't help because it went too far.
yeah.
And another thing what Brene Brown said was exactly that. I don't know if she put it this way, probably not, but what is the biggest fear or like the greatest wound of a man and woman? So in woman is always the body image.
Mm.
And I'm not sure if it has always been since the beginning of times, or it's like certain, maybe in the Western, no, even in the East, I don't know. Anyway, and for men, do you know? You're a man, I can ask you, what are the men most scared of, or like, you know,
So probably stability or to something to that effect.
stability? It was actually weakness, that they are weak, too weak,
Okay.
and probably like incapable in that sense, right?
I I would agree with myself in saying that, but I almost with today's men, I question that sometimes. Weakness is almost a virtue these days, but no, I would agree with that. Okay.
And so that was the only thing I wanted to say, that body image we talk about. So
Appearance weak is or incapable. Yeah, I think that's yeah, I mean that's probably why you get a lot of people who can pretend like they can do things that they can't do or know how to do things that they don't know, is they don't want to appear. And that's actually an interesting, because I don't know what I was watching the other day, some movie, but they were talking about like people not wanting to appear weak, asking a question because they don't know something, because they don't want to appear weak or like they don't have the knowledge or whatever. And I think that is such the opposite. When you are, if you don't know something, ask somebody who does and find out and get the knowledge. Like you shouldn't be embarrassed that you don't know something or that you need to ask to get clarification. Like I think that whatever society we created where people feel that way needs to completely be eradicated, because that is
yes,
just a
but
ridiculous.
if we know where it comes from, so for example, we expect that you should know, and it's
How?
kind of
If you're
like
a
you
child, how do you
expect.
know things? Like that's in class when a kid's afraid to ask a question because they don't want to look stupid, or like
Well, and that's where it
how did we get
starts.
to that? How did we get to that
How
where a kid is afraid to ask a question
it's
when
the
that's the
pride.
whole point of being a kid? The whole point of being a kid is to learn and ask questions.
Yes, but that's what it started as, a pride, the authority, right?
Yeah.
So I'm the authority, you have to just listen to me, and I'm too proud, my ego is too big to, you will be asking questions to me and stuff like that, right? So then when you take it from the perspective of like, do you know what is universe? Okay, we know, let's say so the triad, like one and one plus one is not two anymore beyond some point, and so on, right? And then we know about the sacred geometry and so on, right? So you can basically understand the construct and so on, but do we know what everything there is? We still have so much to discover. So
Right.
why would you feel weird to ask your guides or Jesus something, right?
Yeah.
If he's closer to that answer, or that the consciousness of his is closer to that answer. And so that's what we have to bring back down to earth, right?
Well, and I'm
There's
even saying
too
more
many.
simply, sorry to cut you off, but more
No, it's
simply,
okay.
if I don't understand something that you're teaching me right now, if I don't understand what you're saying, hey, can you clarify that for me? Hey, can you tell me better? Because I want to understand it, and there should be no shame in me not understanding. And
Yes.
here's the other part too is, and this is one thing I learned through coaching and teaching and other things, as a coach or a teacher, I have to be willing to accept the fact that if I'm teaching you something and you don't get it, that's my fault. That's I need to learn how to teach it better. I need to be able to make it so that you can understand it, not the opposite. You shouldn't be, it's not a matter of where you need to get smarter or you just need to be able to figure it out. Like, no, that's my job as a teacher, is to teach you until you understand. And if you don't understand, you need to ask until I teach it to you in a way that you do understand. And that's the relationship that needs to be reestablished, I
Yes,
feel like.
absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean
No,
to
it's
interrupt
it's
you
that
there.
it's that naturally. So the question could be, why am I not understanding? Maybe I'm not ready. It's the readiness. So that's why
Yeah.
it's always better to start with, oh, so that's what you are interested in,
Hmm.
because then it means you already know it. If you
Yeah.
are interested in it, it's like the answer is there. You just have to go on the journey to find it. And that's the best way to teach. So you don't get the credit. But then what the old pattern was, that, oh, I do get the credit because I taught you, you know.
Well,
No,
and that's
you
another thing that needs to move. And that was my big lesson that I just kind of, my empowering moment this past month or so, whatever it was, getting that message from Jesus and then reaffirming through my channeling session this past week or so, that there's the mission. We're here to do it regardless of the outcome, regardless of any accolades, regardless. We don't care who gets credit. We don't care about anything except that's what we're here to do. And we got to accomplish it. Even if we don't, it's doing the mission. So regardless if anybody loves us or hates us or whatever kind of outcome, all of that is irrelevant. The mission's the
Mhm.
mission.
That's what it
And
should be. Our
yeah,
life should be about our missions.
and the
Mhm.
teacher shouldn't care who gets credit for teaching who what or whatever else. Like none of that stuff should
Why
matter.
would you why would you even take that credit? Like, you didn't make yourself, you didn't make that consciousness. You should be happy to get it as a gift anyway.
But
So,
that's kind of the, thinking in the, and the ego is such, and I'm still learning how to balance the ego and that sort of thing too. But because I feel like there's two sides of the ego. There's the identification side of the ego where I am this. That means I have to, actually, I thought one of the songs for this album that's coming out, one of the lyrics is the crown that wears the head, or maybe a song title or whatever. But basically being that, you accept a job title or whatever, or some sort of title, and within that you sort of lose yourself and become what that job title is. Your ego becomes, and you see this with police officers who do things that they normally wouldn't have done, maybe, or other kings or whoever else, where they become that, um
to
instead of being
self-identify, right?
authentic. Yeah, instead of being authentic to themselves, the crown wears the head, because now you're identifying with that crown. Now you have to be what that crown is, instead of the crown being who you are and part of you. And so I think that that's, a lot of our society is people think that they have to fill these roles, or I am this, so I have to fulfill that and become that, and I can only be that in this rigid, and it's like, I don't want to identify myself as anything except I'm here. And that's about it. Like, I don't want to say I'm a
It's very
musician or a
interesting.
healer
Maybe
or
you are
anything
also
like that.
from Sirius. Maybe you have Mercurian
Uh,
energy.
Maybe. I
No,
don't know.
because to be honest, I don't really know any other. I'm not studying that, but like the energies from other galaxy star systems, um, they have more defined thingies like missions and so on. Syrians are more like, I'm here and I can do this and I can do that and I can switch 100 million times throughout my life here. um, as long as it's my mission.
I definitely, you know, agree with that. So possibly.
It's very
I
interesting because that's what I got even like the past 2 days, whatever it was, Sunday, Monday. And I was like, you know, somebody is like English teacher for their entire life. And I'm like, why am I always going like this job and I switch and I stay 5 years here, 10, I don't know, 2 years here and so on. And then I feel bad because I'm not, let's say, how, like volatile or something, right? Somebody couldn't say. And then I know, and not consistent and so on, right? But that was like the old pattern where the people or our parents, they got their job when they were 20 and they finished when they were 60 or something, right?
But now
That's one thing.
think of it from a different perspective. How much more well-rounded are you now, as opposed to being a specialist in some field that is
Mhm.
potentially useless, in a lot of ways, depending
Yes.
on what you fall into, or whatever. But because I've said the same thing, and this is the point that I was going to make earlier with talking to that guy, is we talked about how over specialized everyone has become. So it's like you're a master of one trade and ignorant of everything else in the world. And then you try to make comments about other things based on things that you've heard somebody else's interpretation of or whatever. And it's like, wouldn't it be better to be exactly what you just said? Because I'm the same way. I've had so many different jobs in so many different fields and so many different unrelated things that, have nothing to do
I
with each
want
other.
to know if we have some kind of connection. I don't know. That's
Possibly. Um, but I think it's interesting that it makes you such a more, I guess, just more well-rounded, because you have, like, and I think the same thing is true for people who travel a lot as opposed to staying put in the place that they were born. I think you learn so much more in, meeting all these different people and experiencing these different cultures and foods and everything else that goes with that. And realizing that, I think that there's a lot of times this thought process, and I had the same thing when I was, younger. You just assume that everybody grows up the way you did. And then as you get older and you travel and you realize that it's not even true for your neighbors, much less the people who live across the country or across the world. It's totally different. And I think having that understanding, having that well-rounded, where you can relate to other people through certain activities or certain rituals or whatever it is, and you see the similarities and the differences, and be able to, just create this, own your own opinion about things and your own idea, instead of what people may have taught you or you may have read or whatever else. And I think that that's just such an invaluable, aspect of who we are, that people often overlook because we're so, it's specialized in our little narrow focus. I'm really good at being a machinist at this job in this town that I've never left, and everything else I have no idea about. And it's like, well, you're missing out on a lot there. There's a lot going on in this world that, and one thing I've definitely learned over the years is how playing the guitar has helped me be a better football coach, and being a better football coach has helped me work better with the kids with autism, and how that's helped me better, in my family, and how all of these things can relate to each other and help, in certain aspects, if you're able to connect the dots, and how these things can be useful here. And, oh, that makes sense over here. And then, oh, that opens up this over here. And it just sort of, if you're always curious and you're always seeing the connections between things, then, all that knowledge of all these different, seemingly unrelated things can help build sort of the bigger picture, and put together a more complete idea of topics than if you were just specialized in them, so to speak.
I was always suffering because I could make connections where nobody else could see them.
Yeah.
We're talking about connections, and I was like,
Yeah.
exactly, this is my entire life. I could connect, I don't know, complete opposite things, and it made sense to me anyway. So sometimes too fast, like, the neurons, when they just like bridge so fast, like right.
But I think
Sometimes
that's
it's not
part of
great.
why we are in the position that we're in, right? Is we were able to be on the forefront of those, connecting the dots and learn the things, because, and that's the message that's came to me too, is the teacher has to learn before they can teach. So
Mhm.
we're in that learning phase, so that when all this stuff gets crazy pretty quickly here, we're going to be able to turn around and share all the knowledge that we've learned to help smooth everything
Like
over
more
and help.
perceptive or so, yeah.
Yeah.
um Goodness, there was something.
Sorry.
No,
I
it's
did it
okay.
again.
Anyway,
You're saying about being able to connect the dots, and how that you've always been able
something
to do that.
before, something
Oh,
before. To
I was,
remember what we talked about anyway. So oh yeah, I shed a lot of beliefs about myself. Like, let's say, you don't stick to one thing, and like somebody would call me volatile, right? So there was the aspect of me that I had to like accept. And then my mom would say, let's say, no, you don't like anything, you always I don't know, have a problem with everything, like you don't stay somewhere enough, so I had this feeling like I'm not going to even I would say, you don't like anything. It's like I'm negative, right? I don't like anything. And then I shed another light on this belief that I had. Let's say, um, goodness, I don't know. I have slower thinking now. It was about, you are too superficial. You don't go deep enough, if you switch too fast or something, right? And it's very interesting how a lot of times, I could move on so fast. I did not attach myself. I didn't hold on to past so much. And then yet I did, right? In other aspects. And I think it's because people made me into kind of like, holding tight rigidly onto something and some values. And then I took it as, my own, because when I am going, or even on that mushroom trip, it was like you are doing it to yourself. So it was like you do have that ability to switch, and that doesn't concern you anymore. So you let go fast. Why didn't you let these things go fast? Because, right? And so I'm kind of like getting back to myself. And I know what I wanted to say. The purpose is like when you shed all these beliefs about like you're not deep enough, you're too volatile, you are, negative or something, right? No, it's because this is my essence. I can learn to let go fast. I can switch because this is who I am to become, having more experiences from, let's say, different jobs, because they have to connect dots for me to you have yet another purpose. And that's what it is. It's not like your mission and your purpose is not identified at the beginning. I don't think so, but maybe some people have it. This is what you have to, this is your purpose, this is your entire life, right? But mine isn't defined. That's what I came to understand about myself, at least.
Well, and that's funny that you say that, because I was 100% sure what my purpose was, and I was wrong. So, like I was 100% sure that I was, and this is 15-year-old me talking, like I was going to be a rock star. Like that was my mission, that was my purpose. And I see how music plays a part, in my life now, and it's a very big part, obviously, but I also see how my mission is much larger and much more, that's an aspect, but it's also not the entire, I see, I mean, for one, just the rock star image of what I thought, of what a rock star was or is not what it used to be, for sure. Music industry has changed tenfold since I was a kid. So, but also seeing that now, this greater purpose, this bigger mission of, reaching people on a different level and through music at the same time, music is a part of that. So, but it's just not the only, focus and the only purpose. And there's a much bigger, and if I never would have opened myself up to those things, how, I may never have discovered that. And I think that's how some people may be too, where they find that thing and they're like, this is it, this is all I'm supposed to do, this is my purpose. And then maybe they were supposed to do 4 or 5 other things also, and
Yes,
don't
but
ever
that's
figure it out.
when maybe these tragedies happen, when they are steered away.
True. Yeah. People can't play guitar anymore or something. The hands get deformed or, what. Yeah,
I think
sure.
that's what happened to me.
Really?
That's where I am right now.
Your hands are deformed.
Hmm?
Your hands are deformed.
Oh, no, 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 no. My hands are awesome. That I meant like with this pandemic where it cut it really sharply, and
Well, yeah, because I
I
mean, how many
realized I was just
people,
not happy doing that anymore. I was at the beginning, I was very happy. Oh my God, I would work 24/7 for this, school and for my students and for these lessons. And then I just didn't find fulfillment in it anymore.
right? But I think what is confusing too, and I think, we're similar in this regard, is, because for me it was coaching, and obviously I was, working in schools and stuff too. And you're finding that there was that ability to connect and that ability to sort of, you weren't teaching what you wanted to teach, but teaching is maybe something down
That's
the
it.
road where it was setting you up to understand that. And now, because I feel the same way with coaching and how, and teaching, working in the schools, how all of these things have sort of set me up for where this next phase is going to all be relevant, those skills that I've learned also. So,
Mhm.
and I think that that's, but like you said, where people thought that they were a teacher, in this, but then they realized that this public education system is, just an indoctrination camp for kids and how they want to escape that. And it's like, but I still love teaching. And it's like, okay, well, let's go make the new schools, let's go be the change of the future. And you can still teach, but now we teach what
I'm
we want
ready.
to teach. I am too. I think society's got to catch up a little bit, but I think we're very, I think in the next few months, things are going to really start to roll.
I don't know. I have to see. This is where my belief is, where I have to shed light on um crossing the borders. Like I just don't see it possible.
What, getting to
I know
America?
people travel, but like I don't know what to do because they're saying you have to have actually now 3 doses.
Well, all of this stuff is going to come to a head. I don't know how fast or how soon, or I'm very much trying to stay in the moment in my life and not pay attention to things around me
Me
and all
too.
that. But
You would drive
with
me crazy.
but with that being said, the landscape is changing incredibly quickly, and the narrative is falling apart with this whole pandemic thing. The narrative is falling apart with the vaccine thing. Like it's happening, maybe not as quickly as we hoped, but there's gonna come a point where critical mass is hit, and everybody's gonna say, "Yeah, we're done with this whole thing." And
My
then,
friend the other day, he texted me he got like the third dose.
yeah, well, and that's what would be interesting to know is, well, but that's the other part of it too. Even the people who are complying, even the people who are on their third or fourth dose, eventually they're going to get to the point where it's like, dude, I've done everything you asked, and now you keep changing the goalposts. You keep telling me, and they're going to get fed
I
up
hope
too.
so.
So eventually, that's what I'm saying. That's where that critical mass. It's not just going to be the people who refuse. It's going to be the people who complied and complied and complied and thought they were going back to normal because they complied. That they're going to be like, hey, we did everything you asked and nothing's
No,
changing.
then before that, they will not forget to blame you because, because of you,
Well,
this
that's
is still going on.
the mass formation psychosis that is happening right now. But on that note, I do have to run. I have some obligations this afternoon. It was awesome talking as usual. So we'll have to, I have another session set up for next Tuesday, maybe Thursday. I don't know. Maybe I will do it after that and see what kind of information I get. See if I get any new stuff.
Yes. So we would like to know
Sure.
um, what we can do. How can we not speed up the process? I wouldn't be that what do you call it? Um, not brave, but like how do you call it when it's like you feel that you hold the steering wheel. Anyway, doesn't
I
matter.
think that it's hard right now because there's, like I said, that critical mass is important. Once we get to that where it actually matters, where there's a large enough number to actually affect the system is when it's really going to matter. But in the meantime, it takes all of us individuals to lead in the right direction. And
Bold.
obviously,
That was the word. I don't want to be that bold to say that we're gonna take it into our own hands, but I
well,
don't
that's what we're
I
here to
don't.
do.
So I've heard that there are more. They call them timelines.
Mhm.
Nobody knows.
Oh yeah. Well, so that's a whole nother like tangent we could go off on, but real quickly, so all of our individual timelines create the collective timeline. And now with the internet and information changing and swirling and false information and real information, and nobody knows the difference between anything, all the timelines are completely in flux. Before the internet, it was much easier to control the timelines because you could control the flow of information through the news and all those sort of things. So there was a pretty easy way to predict which way the future was going to head. Since the internet and all these other things that have happened, it is near impossible to predict what timeline we're heading towards collectively. And I do believe, this is just my own, things I've heard through other people and my own kind of intuition, but I do believe that there are at times multiple timelines happening at the same time during the collective. And I think that's why you're seeing people who are completely in this frequency and people in this frequency who are like saying the exact opposites to each other, and neither one is making sense to the other one. And I think that there is a possibility that we really are in different timelines colliding together, and this is true for them, and this is true for them, and this is true for them. Um, so I think there is all of that. But as far as how we change, I really think that this is the initial phase, that we talk about it. We start to get enough people who agree and who want to be a part of this change and who would come to these schools or whatever else it is. And then the next phase obviously would be to implement that and to create these, through either Kickstarters or GoFundMe's or something to that effect, where it's crowdfunding sort of thing, where the people who want to be a part of this, are, and that's what it's going to take in the future. Because if we want to move into, and this is going to go into a whole nother, trying to be as quick as possible here, but personally, this is my personal opinion. I believe that free will is good and control is evil. So if we're in a battle of good and evil, we should be in the pursuit of free will. Taxes obviously would be the opposite of that. That's control. So then what is the opposite? If you need to raise money, is everybody has to voluntarily give what they want to give. So we have to understand and change in that way. So it's not about you being held at a gunpoint to give money to do things that are right. It's, this is what I want to pay my money towards. That's where things go. We don't just pay money to this collective pool that gets to be distributed in whatever way that somebody else wants to. It needs to be on a smaller community level where everybody knows where their money's going, what they're doing with it, with the involvement. And that's how we change.
The only, so it's going to last because it has to be from the heart's truth, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're not going to be indulging yourself or cheating or stuff like that, right? But the money is not going to be even yours, right? And eventually they will disappear altogether. Mm-hmm. So I think that my question was actually ask, and then I got the answer. Ask how we should be changing, if we want to, let's say, be in some kind of more communal type of living, right? It's the heart, following the heart, right? So let's say loving language, loving actions, loving behavior, loving thoughts, loving, I don't know, what is it? Emotions, right? That's all. And if you follow that, learn about that, follow that, and you'll be fine, right?
Well, and I'll leave with this. So the message that I got that, kind of changed my whole outlook on things was the lead from the heart. And when you lead from the heart, you do things because they need to be done, regardless if somebody pats you on the back or tells you you're stupid or whatever the outcome is. It doesn't matter, because that job needed to be done. If everybody embodied that mentality, then everything would get done that needs to be done. Everybody would have food. Everybody would have the things that they want, because everybody would do the things that need to be done because they need to be done and no further reason, right? All the sewers would still get cleaned, all of the TVs would still get made, all of everything else would still happen.
Exactly.
And we wouldn't need money. Now I'm talking about a utopia here, but this is,
No, it's actually, that's what it is, because even let's talk about it next time.
Yeah, but that's where it heads. Everybody, when you do the things that need to be done because they need to be done and not for some sort of reward or monetary gain or whatever else, once we realize that we have responsibility.
They just want to be done.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, there's things that we, and we know the outcome of those things. We want to live in a clean, healthy society. So certain things have to be done. So we do them because they need to be done. We grow the food because it needs to be grown. We give it to the people who want to eat, and those people do their task, and so on and so forth. That's the idea. And I know that that's like an ideal utopia that's probably way far in the future.
Utopia now, but it isn't. A lot of people are pointing exactly. Some are living like that, but again, it has to be, unconditional love, but that's something we can talk about later or next time. And so, yes, I wish you to have a beautiful day, and thank you so much.
Thanks everybody for tuning in as usual.
Right.
All right. See you later.
See you later.